Welcome, everybody. We have a really cool conversation today. I find that most of the greatest healthcare innovation comes from personal need. It comes from, and this is my own story. Everybody knows my story. You've heard it before. I was sick. I fixed myself, and all of a sudden I felt like I needed to fix the world. Then we have Catherine. So Catherine kind of went through a similar journey through her extended family, and we're gonna dive deep into the science mitochondria and spirulina today, uh, from her perspective, because she out of need landed on this tool and was so wowed by what she did that she ended up turning it into a business to help other people. Now she's doing that with thousands of people. So thank you for joining us here today.
Yes, well, thank you. Yes, and personal need is the mother of invention. I find certainly when it comes to the health community, biohacking community, because all of us were not satisfied with the solutions that were provided and lifted the hood to find more, and so that's what happened to me.
Yeah, so tell us about it. Was I think it was your sister? What
Yeah,
exactly
yeah.
happened?
So, like you, I'm Canadian, although I've lived in the United States for 33 years. I'm in Boston, Massachusetts, but all my family are still in Canada. And I only have two sisters, but I'm very close to them. And 15 years ago, my younger sister in Toronto developed breast cancer. First of all, I want everyone to know that she completely healed, and we celebrate her being cancer free every year, which is now 12th year.
Amazing.
And so, as she was preparing for her chemo, her oncologist, which of course is a cancer specialist doctor, told her that she needed to change her diet to an alkaline diet because it would help with her healing. Now, they didn't tell her what exactly an alkaline diet was or why specifically it would be good for her. So, the first call she made was to me, her big sister who loves her. Not that I knew anything about nutrition. I knew nothing about nutrition, nothing. I was an MBA from Western Ivy School doing international business, nothing to do with nutrition. But I'm a really good researcher and I can find out just about anything. So I said, I have no idea what this alkaline diet stuff is, but I will find out. And I did. And it turned out to be mostly a plant based diet because of the phytonutrients and the chlorophyll that are very alkaline. We could talk a bit more about the alkaline diet because cancer cannot exist. Otto Warburg, a Nobel Prize winner, German prize winner scientist from the 1940s, he discovered that cancer cannot exist in a cell that is alkaline. It can only exist in cells that are acidic. So this is one of the reasons why my sister's oncologist wanted her to have an alkaline diet to help make sure that the pH of her cells and her blood, which is even more alkaline, would be slightly alkaline to prevent the cancer from growing or even help it to die. So anyways, I helped her figure that out. She went on to do her chemo and change her diet, completely healed. I started learning more about plant-based nutrition. Now, this was 15 years ago when nobody was talking about plant-based nutrition like they are now. Now it's everywhere, but 15 years ago, not a single company was talking about it. So I thought this was pretty powerful. So I thought more people need to know about this. And I had no idea how I was going to do it, but I gave up my 25-year corporate career, went back to school, got a health coaching certificate from the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. Gave me a little bit of grounding in nutrition, not a lot, to be perfectly honest. But then I taught plant-based nutrition for a year. And this is what truly led me to Algae, because I found out that as I was teaching people the importance of eating more vegetables, I got all this pushback because people were saying, well, it's too much work. They're too heavy to carry from the grocery store. They give me gas. They go bad. My kids won't eat them. My husband won't eat them. I thought, okay, if I can't get people to eat more vegetables, and mothers have been trying to get their children to eat more vegetables since the earth began, I thought I have to find something that's easy and fast that gives them the nutrition of vegetables without any of the work. So I just went and did a deep dive on everything I'd found for my sister that had been in my search for alkaline foods. And that's when I discovered algae. Algae, spirulina and chlorella in particular, and that's what we're going to talk about today. They're quite different algae and they do quite different things in your body. But bottom line is the two of them collectively, there's about 100,000 studies documenting their efficacy for different health benefits. They're endorsed by the United Nations as the answer to world hunger because they have the highest protein in the world. There's 64% protein in spirulina. It's been endorsed by NASA for almost 50 years as the most nutrient dense food in the world. And we have a quote from NASA that says 1 gram of algae has the same nutrition as 1,000 grams of fruits and vegetables. It's been used in Asia for over 50 years, where it's grown as an agricultural crop. People think, yes, algae is in the ocean, but the spirulina and chlorella that we sell, that you buy anywhere from Costco or Whole Foods, is harvested in a farm, fresh water. So first of all, algae is not a supplement. It is a food. Number two, it's grown in fresh water, not the ocean. Yes, there is algae in the ocean, but not what we sell and not what you would buy from other companies. So armed with all this knowledge that's been used safely, that it's a food that's harvested, that it's endorsed by international agencies as the most alkaline food in the world. And the most exciting thing is it comes in little tiny tablets like this. And each tablet that you can swallow or chew, each tablet is so nutrient dense. It has the same nutrition as an entire plate of vegetables. So now you could have 5 or 10 of these and have the equivalent nutrition of 10 plates of vegetables in seconds.
When you say nutrition, are you talking about vitamins, minerals? What are you referring to?
Vitamins, minerals, protein, chlorophyll, pigments, phytonutrients. It has the highest protein in the world, 64% protein for spirulina, 60% for chlorella algae. It has the highest chlorophyll in the world. It has 25 times more chlorophyll than liquid chlorophyll, 500 times more to chlorophyll than arugula. It has 40 vitamins and minerals, all the minerals, all the electrolytes, all the amino acids, 18 of the 20 aminos, including the 9 your body can't make. So it's a complete protein. It has very high in B vitamins, very high in vitamin A. I mean, it's the most nutrient dense food. And by the way, was the first life on Earth almost 4 billion years ago. Not just the first plant, the first life. And we could talk more about that. So it's a food-based replacement for supplements. It provides your body with antioxidants that are critical for protecting mitochondria and that your body normally does make for you until the age of 30. But after the age of 30, it stops making them, which is why your mitochondria get so damaged because they're not protected any longer like they were when you were younger. And algae has the highest concentration of some of those antioxidants, including glutathione, superoxide dismutase, and also chlorophylls. And we'll get into that when we talk about the mitochondria. So here we have something that is effortless to take. You can swallow them or chew them or add them to anything. The most nutrient-dense food in the world, used safely in other parts of the world, endorsed by international agencies. But the problem is, well, there's two problems. People outside of Asia don't know exactly what algae is. All they know is that they think of it as pond scum that closes their beach. Whereas in Asia, they know it's the most nutrient-dense food in the world that provides longevity and health and energy benefits. And the other problem is the quality had been very poor. Most of it came from China. So when I started the company, I learned about all these health benefits and how it could replace literally instantly the need for vegetables. That's spirulina. And chlorella pulls out toxins. The two reasons why people are aging and getting diseased are A, they don't get the nutrients that their body needs to perform optimally or protect their mitochondria. And B, there's too many toxins in our world. Our immune system wasn't built to sustain the toxic load. The average adult, I read, has 700 toxins in their body. So chlorella pulls out toxins and builds your immune system. So together, spirulina, which is nourishing and energizing instantly and also at the mitochondria level, and chlorella, which pulls out toxins and builds your immune system, the two of them are a powerful combination that gives your body everything it needs so that you can either not get sick or unravel your health issues effortlessly and with food. It's pretty amazing.
You said something about the amino acid profile and it being complete, and also the amino acids that your body doesn't that needs to be added, that supplemented because it doesn't produce them. So you also, I hear regularly that there's no plant that has the amino acid profile equivalent to say like a beef or egg. So are you saying that this particular, like, does it outweigh animal proteins?
Well, I don't want to say it outweighs, because there's different reasons why you would eat different meat versus, in this case, plant-based nutrition. But I did find out, and I can send you the article for you to post, that the amino acid profile of spirulina and also to chlorella to a certain degree is virtually identical to mother's breast milk. Identical, the same aminos in the same proportions, because we all know it's not just the aminos, it's the proportion of aminos. And that explained to me why in Japan, when babies they would die if because they couldn't digest mother's breast milk. The only thing that would keep them alive was the spirulina in water. And now I started to understand why. It's because the amino profile is virtually identical. Plus, spirulina has the second highest concentration of a essential fatty acid called GLA, gamma linolenic acid, which technically is omega-6. But because it's not heated in mother's breast milk, or it's not heated in because what makes us special is a lot of our production processes. We do not use high heat to dry our algae, which preserves all the enzymes and all the protein and all the amino acids and all the pigments, which we'll talk about in a minute. But anyways, GLA is an omega-6, and as long as the omega-6 isn't heated, it behaves like an omega-3. So spirulina, the only place that has more GLA than spirulina is mother's breast milk. And the reason why there's so much of it in mother's breast milk is because it is essential for helping the baby's brain develop. Well, we all need healthy brain development. And so you can't get mother's breast milk after the age of 2, pretty much. So spirulina provides the next best thing. I don't have an analysis, although it's certainly an interesting one to perceive, of the aminos that are in meat, red meat, versus the aminos that are in spirulina. But even collagen powder is not a complete protein. It is missing tryptophan. So in spirulina, actually, chlorella has the highest tryptophan in the world. It is 5 times more than turkey. And tryptophan is a precursor to melatonin, which helps you sleep, and serotonin, which is your happy mood neurotransmitter. So the fact that it's a complete protein means that anyone who's vegan who doesn't need to blend their meals to make sure they get complete protein when they're eating beans and something else. It's already complete. So I guess it would be comparable to meat, but I haven't done the analysis on that. So I just have to.
And with all of what you're saying, somebody listening might say like, wow, this sounds incredible. If it's so amazing, why don't I know? Why doesn't the world know? And I remember listening to you in a lecture once talking about how the pigment has been extracted and used as cancer treatment. And so it's not that the world doesn't know. The world, the sort of industry knows, but it's being repurposed and synthesized. So maybe talk to us about that as an example of,
Yeah.
you know, yeah.
Sure. Well, there's a couple of reasons why we don't know much about spirulina and chlorella algae, either as a food or as a healing nutritional. And the number one reason, quite honestly, is it just isn't grown outside of Asia in large quantities. 99% of spirulina and chlorella is grown in Asia. So it's Japan, Taiwan, China, and 99% of it is consumed there. So
Right.
If you live in China or Japan, you can't ride on your bicycle to school or drive to work or go anywhere without going by an algae farm. They're just everywhere. They're as common there as wheat or cornfields are here. So in Asia, it's so normal, they don't even think about it. It's like air to them. But because we didn't grow up with it, we don't even know about it, let alone it's not part of our vernacular. So that's number one.
Yeah.
Number two is algae is food. So it's like broccoli. There's not really any IP. There's no patent that you can develop for it, because so the biotech companies weren't going to pursue it. Although there's now algae is being grown internally inside in glass tubes with LED lights, and they can manipulate the way that it's grown to create either more or less omega-3s or more or less certain pigments. So there may eventually be some patents that can come out of it, but basically right now there isn't. Number three is anyone who's been in the food or supplements industry knows large companies don't launch new industries. They wait till some passionate entrepreneur like myself or yourself have developed a solution for a problem that needs one, and
Yeah.
and then they acquire them. So it's no different than, think about it. 10 years ago, most people didn't know about chia seed or matcha or quinoa or CBD or most recently collagen powder. Vital Proteins put collagen powder on the map. So
Yeah.
there has been nobody that's been explaining what spirulina and chlorella do for you in terms of not just nutrition, but for healing properties, except me and EnergyBits, my company. We are literally the first ones in the world, certainly in North America. And I've been doing this now for 13 years. So I'm pretty deep in this, and I'm determined to help people avoid, like you are, all these chronic illnesses, which are escalating. And the average North American adult, over 40% of North Americans have a chronic disease. And when you hit 65, by the way, I'm over 65, 80% of adults over 65 have a chronic disease. 80%. That's crazy. It's unnecessary, but it's because they're not, their DNA, their mitochondria are being damaged because they don't have the protection that they had, and they have too many toxins. So anyways, that's why we don't know about it. It's not grown here. No one's explained it to you. No one's made it easy for you to understand. And that's what we do. And also nobody made it safe. Most of the algae up until now came from China, and we grow ours in Taiwan, which is world renowned for having the highest quality. And we're very, very careful. We grow it in triple filtered spring mountain water, which is important because algae will absorb whatever's in the water. So you never, ever, ever want algae that's wild, because there will be microtoxins in the water and algae will just absorb it. There's nothing you can do about it. It's just the way it is. So you never want algae from a lake or a river or an ocean. So please don't go down to Lake Ontario or wherever you live and scoop up a bunch of algae on the beach, because I can promise you it will be toxic and you'll do yourself more harm than good. So save your needs to the professionals, hopefully to our company, EnergyBits, because we're the only ones that I'm aware of that does third-party lab tests here in the United States. That's why we're sold through doctors and functional medicine nationwide. We're the only algae company that is. But if I do my job right in the next 5 or 10 years, algae will finally get on the map, because it needs to be. It deserves to be. We need the nutrition that's available in it, because our soils are so damaged and our food is so processed. Nobody's getting the nutrition that they need and that their grandparents had. It's just the way it is. It's impossible to be nourished from food anymore to the degree that you need it to be optimally healthy. And that's what algae does. It fills that hole. It fills the hole for nutrition, and it pulls out the toxins that you don't want. So it's pretty exciting to me.
We need it on the map for prevention and disease reversal, but it's already on the map for the allopathic treatment side, which we don't know of. You've done research into how the pigments have been used in
Yeah.
various pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
So tell us.
So let's talk about that. So spirulina is what's called a blue-green algae because it has a blue pigment in it called phycocyanin. And there's some algae that you can buy on that is just the blue. It's a blue pigment, beautiful blue pigment. That's what it looks like. Chlorella is a green algae, and it only has chlorophyll, which is a green pigment. So that blue pigment, which is called phycocyanin, and I encourage people to Google this. It's a long word and it's difficult to spell, so I'm going to spell it out for you. It's PHYCOCYANIN. And the reason I wanted to spell it out for you is so that you can see that what I'm telling you is absolutely correct. Phycocyanin has been used by the chemotherapy and cancer treatment pharmaceutical industry for killing cancer cells. And here's a picture of one study. So what they did is they dyed the cancer cells blue. So you can see all the blue dots in here. And over 24 hours, and they treated it with phycocyanin. And within 24 hours, here's the time lapse, you can see that the blue dots, which were the cancer cells, basically disappeared. And here's a chart that also shows the reduction. Phycocyanin killed all those cancer cells. And here's the amazing thing. The amount of phycocyanin that is in one of our tablets of spirulina, one tablet, has 4,000 more times more phycocyanin in it than was used in this experiment to kill cancer cells. And the way that it kills cancer cells, and it's a little technical, but the phycocyanin well, let's back up to the mitochondria. Your mitochondria are what generate cellular energy in your cells, and the way they do that is through a process called the electron transport chain, which are different molecules that are embedded in the inner membrane of the mitochondria. We could talk more about this in a minute. So there's a couple of what's called transport molecules. There's the ones that are embedded, and there's this little transport molecule. And the way I describe it to people is, think of it as like the shuttle bus at the airport. You get to the airport, but you can't get to your flight until you get the shuttle bus that takes you to your gate, right? So there's this little shuttle bus molecule that's called cytochrome C. And it takes the molecules in the electron transport chain to the final destination where it's generated into ATP. But it also, when it and so in a healthy cell, that phycocyanin protects that little shuttle bus. And that's one of the reasons why it helps generate more energy and more ATP and is really great for healthy cells. But for whatever reason, when there is a cancer cell, that cytochrome C is released. It triggers it to be released. And the cytochrome C then targets both cancer cells and senescent cells. And I can describe what the senescent cells are in a minute. And they kill them. Only in the cancer and senescent cells does this occur. The healthy cells are not only protected, but they are improved because that cytochrome C molecule moves the electrons along to generate the ATP. Now, the way that the chemotherapy companies can find out whether their treatment is working is they measure the amount of cytochrome C in your body. I don't know whether they do it in your blood or I don't know how they measure it, but that's the indicator that cancer cells are being killed. It's the release of this cytochrome C molecule. Pretty crazy, right? And there are two of those shuttle buses in the electron transport chain process. Cytochrome C, which is, by the way, a water-based molecule. And prior to that is another shuttle bus that's CoQ10. And that's a fat-based molecule. Now, interestingly, the other pigment that is in algae is chlorophyll. And chlorophyll is a fat-based pigment. It just amazes me how intricate our bodies are and how intelligent nature is to ensure that if we give our bodies what it needs, it performs beautifully for us. Because that earlier shuttle bus, which is the CoQ10 molecule and is a fat-based molecule, when you have chlorophyll, and chlorella has the highest chlorophyll in the world, spirulina has the next highest. When you have chlorophyll and red light, which could be from sunlight or red light therapy, it recycles that CoQ10 molecule, which I refer to as a shuttle bus. It recirculates it because it goes from a pro-inflammatory to a non-inflammatory in the transitional stage, and it generates ATP. So just think about it. Light and chlorophyll generate ATP in the electron transport chain. No food required. And by the way, no free radicals released. This is what's so amazing. And I know we jumped deep into the mitochondria thing without giving people an overview. And I still would like to back up and give people an overview. But it's so stunning to me that the two key transport molecules fit into the actual pigment profile of algae. phycocyanin, which is the blue one for the cytochrome C and is water based, and chlorophyll, which is the fat based pigment that is earlier in the chain. It's pretty amazing stuff.
Sounds like to me that it could even be a fasting hack because your body is in this is you're not interrupting the autophagy or
Completely.
fasting. In fact, you're supporting it, but
Absolutely.
you're getting your minerals, you're getting your your amino acids. It's really phenomenal because it's a one sort of one stop shop.
Yeah.
To hack your fasting.
It's a total fasting hack. In fact, I was just on Mindy Peltz's podcast. It hasn't been released yet.
Right.
About her book is Fast Like a Girl, and she really encourages, as do I, people to do either intermittent fasting or any fasting. And this does not interfere with your fast. In fact, it escalates it and deepens it because of there's zero carbs, by the way, only one calorie per tablet, gives you all the nutrients that you need, so you're not tired, you don't have that or if you're keto, you don't get the keto flu. And it has these capabilities that help clean out all the junk in your trunk. The senescent cells are, so let's talk about senescent cells. What are they? Well, and you know that your average cell has telomeres around it that protect the DNA within it. And your average cell will replicate about 50 times. But every time it replicates, it loses a little bit of the telomere until it's been, the telomeres are so short, and there's no, and this is one, and by the way, superoxide dismutase, which we haven't even talked about yet, and again in spirulina, protects the telomeres from shortening. But once it's been replicated about 50 times, it can't replicate anymore. And each time it replicates, there's a greater likelihood that the DNA will get damaged. So, but the thing is, it doesn't die. I tell people it's sort of like someone who is retired from their job, but they insist on keep coming to the office and hanging around and, taking up space and causing problems because they don't keep up with new technology.
Yeah.
They're exactly like that. So as we get older, we have more and more of these senescent cells just hanging around and they're not doing anything. And in fact, they're inflammatory because they've been so exposed, their DNA, and the DNA is starting to probably unravel. So you want to get rid of those. And that's one of the things that phycocyanin does. It identifies them and kills and clears them out. I think cryotherapy also is a modality that helps with that. Here's just a little visual I found that, here's your cell, and every time it subdivides, the telomeres get shorter and shorter and shorter. And then, as I said, it doesn't at a certain point after 50 replications, which means when you're older, it can't do anything anymore. And so it just hangs around. So you want to get rid of those because they contribute to aging and disease and inflammation. And inflammation is always what ultimately leads to damaged mitochondria, which leads to disease and other sort of aging related problems. So the phycocyanin kills them and gets rid of them, and the superoxide dismutase helps protect the telomeres in that replication process. So you won't have as much exposed DNA as they replicate. So there's less likelihood for the DNA being damaged. And both of those, spirulina algae has the highest of both of those in the world. Well, in fact, phycocyanin does not exist anywhere else in the world except in spirulina. And in fact, superoxide dismutase, also known as SOD, is virtually non-existent either. I think you can get 0.000001% from cabbage, but it's so little, it doesn't do anything. And the little that you get gets damaged in the digestive tract. And here's the cool thing about spirulina. It's not even a plant. It's a bacteria. It does not have a cellulose wall and it does not have a nucleus. Why is that important? Because when you consume it, whether you swallow it or chew it, doesn't matter. It gets into your bloodstream almost instantly and so quickly that it literally bypasses the digestive tract. It gets, especially if you chew it, as I do, most people do swallow it, I will admit. So all the nutrients, including the superoxide dismutase and the phycocyanin, can get into your body and can get absorbed quickly and easily. So it's very bioavailable. It's not just what you eat, it's what you absorb that
Mm.
determines the power of the nutrition.
So if you were to chew it and crumble it up and kind of hold it sublingually under your tongue, it could go directly into your bloodstream.
Yes, and I wouldn't hold it in, just hold it, because it's a flavor most people, quite honestly, don't like, but it's very earthy. But if you like it, God bless you. But it doesn't dissolve very easily in your mouth or even in water. You need to either crush it up to put it in smoothies or chew it, or for whatever reason, when it gets into your when you swallow it, it does. I don't know why it does dissolve very, very quickly. Anyone who's hypoglycemic or is diabetic, has any kind of blood sugar issues, spirulina algae is a godsend. I used to be hyperglycemic, and so anyone who's had it knows what it feels like. It's terrible. Your blood sugar plunges and you break out into a sweat and you have no energy, and
Yeah.
you start shaking. And I would take a handful of these, and within a minute, or literally a minute or two, I would be okay. And there's nothing in the world that ever moved that fast for me, and it doesn't happen very often anymore. So it's pretty powerful.
So whenever you see a product that is available that can really hone in on cellular health, innate mitochondrial function and energy, and then you wonder why, when you listen to someone like Catherine, you're like, there's no way she's the age she's saying she is, because her brain is on fire. And I've heard more in the last 30 minutes than I've heard in the last 30 days from all the people I know, you know. So, and the reason why, and I mean, I want to assume this, but if we're saying that here's a thing that supports the mitochondria, that deals with superoxide dismutase, that deals with, senescent cells, we're talking about longitudinal brain health,
Yep.
right? And that's why somebody like yourself, who doesn't come from this space, who was an MBA, is self-taught, probably knows more on the topic than the top experts in the world. You probably are the top expert in the world, and your brain, given your age, is firing better than most people in their sort of peak careers.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
I'm 60. I'm going to be 67 very soon, and nobody can believe it. They figure I'm about 40. My skin is clear, has no wrinkles, and I tell people I don't do Botox. I've been taking algae every day for 13 years. I'm the walking example of that. This stuff works, and it works. And I'll backtrack, if that's okay, about
no,
why your mitochondria health is absolutely your number one goal if you to achieve longevity and peak performance, mentally, physically, whatever you want. So if you can understand that, then you'll start to understand why algae is the number one way to achieve that, and the most effortless way, I might add. You don't have to buy any fancy devices and invest $60,000 in your own cryotherapy or plunging tank, although those certainly help, and algae will up level the results that you get. But one of the things I loved about it so much, and still do, is that it's safe for every age group, from babies to children to teenagers, pets, grandparents, and it's effortless. And because they're in tablets, if you don't like the flavor, you swallow them. There's no repeat. They're easy to travel with. Anyway, so let's back up a little bit. So I want to help people understand. So in your cell, you have lots of interesting stuff, including your nucleus.
yeah,
But you have these little things. They're peanut-shaped things that are called mitochondria, and they're known for generating the cellular energy. And the way I describe cellular energy to people is that it's like money. When you have more money, you can do more things and you have more choices, right? Cellular energy is exactly the same way. When you have more cellular energy, you can do more things and you have more choices. So what you're going to find out from me in a few minutes is that algae, particularly spirulina, gives you more cellular energy. So, and it's not a stimulant energy like caffeine, chemicals, or sugar. It's cellular energy. So if you took a handful of spirulina and then you went for a run, you would have a great run, faster, longer. You wouldn't even notice it. If you took it before you went to sleep, you would have the best sleep of your day because it helps you with whatever it is that you've chosen to use your cellular energy for. So it gives you and your body more to do whatever it is that you're doing. So inside these little mitochondria that are inside your cell is where your ATP is generated. But here's the problem. Nobody talks about this, but the byproduct of generating ATP are free radicals. We all have heard of free radicals. We know that they're damaging, they steal other electrons, and they cause inflammation. So there's all this inflammation going on as a result of the ATP production. And the problem that is causing the aging is the fact that your mitochondria have their own DNA. You have your regular DNA, was it 22,000, 25,000? Your mitochondria have their own DNA. I think there's either 12 or 13, not many. And those DNA are located exactly where the ATP is produced and where, of course, is where the free radicals are produced. It's inside the inner membrane. I forgot to mention that your mitochondria are the only cell in your body that have two membranes. Every other cell has what's called a lipid membrane. That's a fancy way of saying fat-based. It's a fat-based membrane, and your mitochondria have a second membrane inside that lipid membrane. I'm going to tell you in a minute where that second membrane came from. But here's the problem. That second membrane is impenetrable to virtually all antioxidants except 4: superoxide dismutase, melatonin, chlorophyll, and what's the other one? Glutathione. I'll talk about those in a minute. Anyways, back to the story about the ATP creating free radicals and damaging the mitochondria DNA. This is important because your mitochondria DNA control everything in your body. They found out that they control the regular DNA. They control cellular communication. They control apoptosis, which is programmed cell death. They control everything. And so when your mitochondria DNA get damaged, as they are every nanosecond, because they're exactly where the free radicals are being produced, this is what causes aging and disease, because everything goes off the charts. The way I describe it to people is, if you've ever sat near a bonfire or a fireplace and you got too close and sparks would fly from the fire, they might land on you and you might get burned. Well, your mitochondria DNA are located right where the fire is. The fire are the free radicals. Your regular DNA is nowhere near where the free radicals are being produced. So they last a lifetime. Your mitochondria DNA average lifespan is about 10 days, 10 tops 30 days, because they're located exactly where all that free radical damage is happening. So the way to encourage or protect your mitochondria DNA and to prevent damage or to reverse chronic disease damage is to protect those mitochondria DNA. And there's 2 ways to do that. One is to reduce the amount of free radicals, and 2 is to remove the free radicals. But before I get to that, I want to show you what happens. Remember that picture I showed you about the electron transport chain? I'm going to show you it. I'll find it in a minute. So here it is. Here's here's the membrane with all this little thing. Here's what they actually look like in the mitochondria. When they're really close, what they do is, as I mentioned, it's called the electron transport chain because electrons get transported from each one of these little sections to finally generate ATP. It's sort of like a relay race. If you've ever seen a relay race, someone has a baton and they pass it to the next person and then they pass it to the next person and then they cross the finish line. So that's exactly what's happening in the electron transport chain. They're transferring electrons to one another to generate ATP. But when you have too many free radicals that damage the membrane, this is what happens. The sections become, the mitochondria expand, and the sections become too far apart from one another. So they can't transfer the electrons very well, which means they drop them. And every time they drop an electron, that's a free radical. So now you have a scenario that as you get more and more free radical damage, the mitochondria just expand, and explode, and you get what's called necrosis, where they basically explode and all the cellular gunk gets spread out to the rest of your body. This is why one of the reasons why cancer spreads so quickly, because that's what's going on. So here's a picture of what it actually looks like. Here's a healthy mitochondria, and here's a damaged mitochondria. See all that empty space in the middle?
Yeah.
That's where the electron transport chain has been so damaged by electrons that it doesn't fill in anymore. So it's just a cycle that keeps repeating itself. So here's the good news: is there are two ways to slow that down. One is to reduce the amount of free radicals that are being produced. And how do you do that? Well, you can get rid of your carbs, processed carbs, sugar, processed foods, because they create the most free radicals in that electrons transport chain connection. Then, so you can be keto or just low carb. You don't have to be full keto. Just reduce the carbs, and you will automatically reduce the amount of free radicals. An even better way is to take algae and or do intermittent fasting or any kind of fasting, because there's virtually zero carbs as a result of of algae or fasting. You'll never get to zero, because just the act of breathing and digesting and moving creates some free radicals. But you can significantly reduce the amount of free radicals being produced by just reducing your carb load. Number one, doesn't cost you a thing. And I encourage everybody to do it. Carbs are killing us. Sugar is killing us. It's worse than cocaine. Okay, so that's reduce your free radicals. Number two is to remove the free radicals. Now, here's the problem. I alluded before to the fact that your mitochondria have an inner membrane. And so the problem is most antioxidants like vitamin C and vitamin E, and there's studies that have been done on this, can't get into that inner membrane. In fact, by the way, drugs can't get in there. Virtually nothing can get in there. So you can't just remove the free radicals. But fortunately, there are 4 that can. There may be a couple more, but I know for sure 4. Glutathione, melatonin, superoxide dismutase, and chlorophyll. Now, the good news is your body makes 3 of those: melatonin, glutathione, and superoxide dismutase from the moment you are born. The downside is once you hit 30, it stops producing them. It reduces them until as you get older, you're virtually zero. So this is exactly when most people get hit with chronic disease, heart disease, cancer, diabetes. It's all around, starts to happen in the 40s and then 50s and then 60s, you're sitting duck. And that's why over 65, 80% of adults have a chronic disease. And I believe it's because after the age of 30, your body and your mitochondria are not being protected with these antioxidants that used to get in there to protect you from damage.
If you want to keep diving deeper with your prescription for life with the Unpilled podcast, make sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. I've also written my first book, The DNA Way: Unlock the Secrets of Your Genes to Reverse Disease, Slow Aging, and Achieve Optimal Wellness. Take a look and enjoy, guys.
And I wondered why that happened, because Mother Nature's so intelligent. And I did some research and found out that until recently, let me back up. We've been on Earth, humans have been on Earth for 2 million years. And it's only in the last 100 and change years, we've lived past 30. We always died at 30. So our biology thinks we're dying at 30. And so it hasn't caught up with our new longevity. Some people are going to live until they're 90 or 100 or more. So, but your body just isn't making those antioxidants any longer. And what's so important about them? Well, for example, the one called superoxide dismutase, what it does is it turns the free radicals into water, absolutely harmless water. So this protects your mitochondria DNA from being damaged. Same with glutathione, which, by the way, is a master antioxidant. And melatonin, most people know melatonin is something that helps them sleep and manages their circadian rhythm. But I tell people, and the science has found this out, melatonin managing the circadian rhythm is a recent discovery. It's only since we had vertebrae that was a purpose of melatonin. Melatonin has been in our cells as an antioxidant since the very beginning of time. 80%, 90% of your melatonin doesn't come from your pineal gland. It's generated by your mitochondria and used by your mitochondria as an antioxidant. So this is why as people get older, they don't sleep very well, because their body is not generating the superoxide or the melatonin like it used to, but it's also not generating glutathione and superoxide dismutase. So the great news is our algae, I can't say it for everybody else, has the highest concentration of glutathione in the world, the highest concentration of chlorophyll in the world, the highest concentration of superoxide dismutase in the world. So there's 3 of the 4. We're still trying to figure out about the melatonin levels. We had lab tests that showed very high levels, and then we had somebody else show us we had low levels. So I'm doing a third set. So I don't know about the melatonin, but now your body can get access to the antioxidants that has been missing since the age of 30 to protect your mitochondria. Because when you have damaged mitochondria, you're going to have damaged everything. Your brain, by the way, has the highest concentration of mitochondria in the world, in your entire body. It has 2 million mitochondria per cell. 2 million mitochondria per cell. Think about that. That's a very crowded cell. And there's a great book I recommend called Brain Energy that Dr. Chris Palmer recently wrote that talks about how all brain issues are due to damaged mitochondria. It doesn't matter whether it's Alzheimer's, dementia, anxiety, it's all mitochondria damage. And I completely agree. In fact, we just did our own clinical trial. We did a small trial with an organization called the Gray Team, which the Gray Team is a nonprofit that tries to stop suicide rates of military veterans. And we gave them spirulina, 30 tablets of our spirulina, which is like one little pouch, for a month. And we have brain scans that show the inflammation completely disappeared after 30 days. So it's very exciting to me to see what spirulina can do. And it did it because of the superoxide dismutase and the blue pigment, which also reduces inflammation. But you've got to control that inflammation. And when you do, then you protect your mitochondria. Your heart has the next highest, actually women's eggs have the next highest mitochondria per cell. It's I think it's 700,000, then your heart. But they're realizing brain issues, heart disease, everything comes down to a mitochondria disease. So if you can find a way, and algae provides it, the spirulina with the superoxide dismutase and the blue phycocyanin and the chlorella with the high chlorophyll can get into that mitochondria and protect it from the damage. Now, I know you probably have some more questions, but first I want to tell you why there is a second membrane on the mitochondria. And everything I say is backed by science, and so is this. So at the very beginning, I may have mentioned that algae, spirulina in particular, which is a bacteria, cyanobacteria, was the first life on Earth. And before algae, Earth was just gas and water. No oxygen, no life. Nobody really knows why the first bacteria started growing, cyanobacteria, but it did. And it was an anaerobic cell, which means it did well without oxygen. That's what anaerobic means. So and it generated ATP and released oxygen in the process as a byproduct. So after 1 billion years, there was enough oxygen on Earth that other life forms, larger aerobic cells, could start growing. And they did. But they didn't generate ATP as well. So I tell people, I can imagine the conversation going something like this. The big cell says to the little cell, hey, little guy, I see you're struggling there with all this oxygen, and we're doing pretty well, but we don't generate ATP as well as you do. How about we join forces? You generate ATP for us, and we'll protect you from the oxygen. And that's exactly what happened. The original anaerobic cell got absorbed by the larger aerobic cell, but instead of digesting it, it just coexisted. And that original cell, which was a cyanobacteria like spirulina, became mitochondria. The inner membrane of the mitochondria that is unique to your body is left over as a 4 billion year old leftover from when it was by itself as an anaerobic cell. It didn't
Mm,
disappear when it got absorbed. A second membrane was put around it. But this is why there is two membranes in your mitochondria. It came from the same genesis. And that explains to me why algae seems to have everything that your mitochondria need to be healthy and to live optimally, because they
mm,
came from the same place. The genesis is, it's called the process that is called endosymbiotic theory. And you can read, you can Google it, you can go on any science-based PubMed article and search for endosymbiotic theory, and they all reference it. It was discovered in the 60s by an MIT professor, and she was heckled for 10 years by her peers until they realized she was right.
yeah,
But
that's
that's pretty
amazing.
fascinating, right?
Yeah, it is, and I can tell you what's even more fascinating is this has never happened to me before. I forgot that I was interviewing in a podcast because the information you're providing was so rich and interesting and deep and meaningful that I picked up my pencil and started making notes like I was watching a lecture. And then
I'll take that as
you
a
said
compliment.
something about me. Yeah, then you said something about me asking a question. I was like, oh shoot, I'm actually part of this process. You know,
It's
so really, yeah, mind blowing stuff because you're taking complexity and making it so simple. But which is why what you've done in terms of product and solution, it makes so much sense because you're not restricted by you've taken the insights from all of this crazy science and honed in on what really matters, right? And you've made it very easy to understand. And I fully now understand why what you're doing is so impactful. I've used it myself, and I felt the change. And you're the name Energy Bits. You think like, hey, it's like taking caffeine. No, it's not that. It's more like this is life energy. This is life force
right.
energy. This is the cell mitochondria flourishing.
Exactly. Yeah, it's
You
a big,
know,
and I have my work cut out for me because I need to cut through the clutter of what energy is. Everyone thinks of it as a stimulant, and this is
yeah,
completely different. This is cellular energy. This is the core of life itself, is the cellular energy, but it behaves, it's quite different from being a stimulant. And that's why I tell people, you might not even notice it at first, especially and the chlorella, by the way, does not give you energy, only spirulina. Um, because it's very quiet energy, because it's nutrition and it's at the cellular level. So I tell people there's
mm,
no drama with algae. There's no high and there's no low. It's just working in the background at all times so that you just feel fresh. That's it.
yeah,
Nothing more dramatic than that. But you can use it for whatever you want and be more effective at whatever it is that you're doing. And that's what's so amazing. It's sort of like having a big bank account. It's there if you want to use it. And
yeah,
it takes the stress. I refer to spirulina and chlorella literally not only as nutritional insurance, but literally your health insurance, because it's there to do whatever you need. And then everything else is a bonus. If you go for dinner with your friends, it's just for social, but it's not for, cellular performance. And same with money. When you have a lot of money in the bank, it gives you that safety level, that comfort level that you can have and do whatever you want if you choose to use it. And if you don't choose to use it, you still have it.
yeah. That's what you're describing is exactly how I feel from the product. It's not like I took a shot of coffee, and I don't. That's not what I'm looking for either. It's more like I'm resilient. I can
Yeah.
take on more. Right?
Yes.
I'm not exhausted. I can keep going. I recover faster. So you can just. It feels like you're younger. Let's
Yeah.
just say that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's
So
a good
now,
way.
yeah, that's literally what you feel like. The way you used to feel when you're 25 came back, right? That
Yeah.
spring in your step. So one last thought. In terms of your product, and I urge everyone to go try it out. Um, there, you have the chlorella, you have the spirulina, and then you have a combined product. Why would somebody need either or? How do you know what you need?
Yeah. Well, generally, if you can, we encourage people to buy them separately. And here's why. Most people are hungry and tired and want energy throughout the day. And that's what spirulina does for you. It also satisfies your hunger. You could have a pouch of 30, and it would satisfy your hunger for probably 5 hours. So it could be like a meal replacement. You can have it at night too if you want, but most people are looking for alertness and physical energy during the day. And so
Mhm.
that's when we, suggest you take, if you want energy or hunger satisfied, boom, that's spirulina. Now, chlorella is a wellness algae. We call it recovery bits, and so spirulina, we call it energy bits because it's a energetic, energizing,
Yeah.
cellular energy algae. Chlorella is a detox, wellness, healing algae. And so your body goes through a detox repair cycle when you sleep. And it pulls out everything: heavy metals, alcohol, dead cells, glyphosate, anything. And so you'll get the best use of it if you take it before bed, because that's when it's going to be your body is naturally going through a detox cycle. So this will facilitate it. And also has the highest tryptophan in the world, which helps you sleep. So for maximum detox and wellness, that's when you want recovery bits, because of the has the highest chlorophyll and has nutrients like K2. So I tell people, because I do a lot of lectures at conferences, as you know, just like you, and they're
Yeah.
very often at hotels. So I said, think of spirulina, which we call energy bits, like room service, gives you everything you need for the day. And think of chlorella or recovery bits as housekeeping. Cleans out your
Yeah.
room, cleans out the junk in your trunk. So the two of them work quite differently. This also heals your brain because of the high fats and phycocyanin and superoxide dismutase, and this heals your gut because of the fiber and the chlorophyll. So this also, if you want a brain focus, this would be spirulina. If you are looking for a gut focus, it would be chlorella. Now, if you
Hmm.
just can't manage keep having two algae and keeping them straight, that's why we did the blended algae, which we called Vitality Bits. It's a blended tablet, 50% spirulina, 50% chlorella. It's just for simplicity. If you don't want to have two bags or two canisters or two whatever, you get the two of them combined, and then you can take the same one in the morning and and at night. There is no restriction, by the way, of the time that you can use them. You can use them any time of day for whatever reason you want, but you only get your hunger and energy from spirulina, and you only get detox from chlorella.
Yeah.
That's the main difference between the two of them.
Okay, makes sense. That's awesome. So I wanted to thank you because this was a real deep dive. You know, it's one thing to anyone can hear it and see it. You know, it's one thing to come on here and talk about a product, but it's a whole other thing to educate us and teach us the background of, why this product even exists. And
Yeah.
there was a lot of that today, and I thank you.
Yeah. Well, I am at heart an educator, and I didn't want to just be a vendor. I didn't even plan to start a company. I just wanted to help my sister. And then I
Yeah.
realized I could help a few more people. And then I just kept helping people. But I realized I needed to know the science of why this was working so well. So it's taken me 13 years to figure it all out, and now I'm eager to share it. But I can't
Yeah.
help people if they don't get it into their bodies. And also, I didn't mention, but phycocyanin and superoxide dismutase are completely damaged by high heat. And so most other algae companies use high heat to dry their algae because they're lower priced products, so they have to get to market quickly. But the trouble is the high heat kills the phycocyanin, which kills cancer. It kills the superoxide dismutase, which is an enzyme, so you're not getting your protection, and it damages all the nutrition. So you can't just go out to Whole Foods and buy any spirulina or chlorella because it will not work as effectively as ours. And the only other spirulina I can recommend, and I can recommend it very highly, is frozen spirulina for the same reason. No heat has been used. So all of your nutrients, all the pigments, all the nutrients, all the enzymes are still intact. But frozen spirulina is messy, hard to find, expensive. You can't travel with it, and expires very quickly. So it's not a realistic solution. Whereas ours is raw, vegan, keto, paleo, carnivore, no lectins, no oxalates. It's really fantastic. And by the way, we have a 20% discount code for all of your listeners. It's unpilled. And come to us, see us at energybits.com. And it works on all the products. Honestly, it will change your life. And it's something everybody should be taking every day for the rest of their lives. for their children. We've got to stop this terrible escalade of chronic disease, and the
Mm.
food companies aren't going to help us, and and the pharmaceuticals aren't the answer. So God bless Mother Nature for giving us algae. I just want people to understand why it works so well, and then you'll experience it yourself. So thank you so
No,
much.
thank you. No, thank you for the work you do because you are part of that answer to the current state of things when it comes to healthcare. And thank you for the promo code. It's very kind of you to offer that. I'm going to actually use that myself today.
Okay.
So I have to reach out.
Well,
So,
we'll send you some product anyways. All right. Thank you
well,
so
thank
much,
you. This was an
Kashif.
awesome
And
conversation.
yes, and I'll send you all the articles that you can post, because there is real science, and it's all referenced. So I want people to know I've really done my homework.
Thank you
You
again.
can count on it. All right. Thank you. Bye bye.